Which one?
That's on for Wicked, popular.
Yeah.
Which one?
I didn't see Wicked. I didn't see Wicked.
You should. It's on.
Wicked.
It's a Broadway. I don't know, Broadway film.
You want to talk about the satellite thing?
We're selling the Gary area. I don't think we need to talk about it. It sounds like they're requesting that actually have it.
Yeah.
But if it's for community service, we would let them use it for free anyways.
Oh, I'm sorry. It's free. I didn't think you would. Yeah. How are you?
Okay, we're gonna call the meeting to order at 7 PM. Pledge of allegiance.
United States of America, and to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Jason. Here. Tara. Ken's here, Mary. Gary. All present. Number D is the agenda. Can I get a motion to approve the agenda as presented or with changes? Is there any changes? Can I get a motion then?
I'll make a motion to approve the agenda as presented.
Second.
All right, Jason, any comments? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Ayes carried. Tonight we have, Richard Russell from, Vesper to, be our guest speaker. And I believe that he got a little statement to say to us, and I think he'll be taking questions and we'll go that way. You have the floor.
Yes, I'm sure it's in all your packets today, and will be publicly made online. Vesper has proposed some edits to the ordinance you guys have been working on. Most of these edits are tied around the timing of certain deliverables. So before the project was proceed, we agreed with the vast majority of what you guys have already had in your ordinance, specifically around safety requirements. However, some of those safety deliverables can't actually be achieved or completed until we've selected final vendor and we've had final site design with our interconnection committee. So what we've tried to achieve is that these deliverables would be delivered or would be presented to you after the SUP has been approved, but before the project can become commercially operational. So not that they won't be completed, just that they will be completed after an SUP is already approved. That is a lot of detail, and I'm sure, and unfortunately, I want to apologize for only delivering that to you all today. I was on PTO and I was told under no circumstances could I work on anything related to battery storage as much as I would love to. So my sincerest apologies. I know that this will take a lot of time to digest and people may have questions. As you guys know, I'm always happy to opine on battery storage and battery storage safety for as long as you'd like. The second thing I'd like to discuss today is that Vesper Energy is finalizing what's called a community benefits agreement. The community benefits agreement will be in total $100,000 per year for the entirety of the project's lifespan. How we've kind of structured it is that $50,000 would go to Columbia Township, $25,000 a year would go to the local school district, and then $25,000 would go to the fire, the emergency services. We are open and willing to engage on when we allocate those funds. We're not trying to dictate to you what your needs are. So if you think $100,000 should go to just Columbia Township and you guys redistribute that, happy to have that conversation. That's, something we want your feedback on. And then we can also kind of talk about updated tax guidance that we've received, specifically as it pertains to energy storage and how they'll be taxed across the state. I know you guys wanted specifics around how much the township would receive over 35 years. And a conservative estimate would be over $5 million just for the township over those 35 years. That's not including local schools, including Van Buren and Bangor School District. So I'll pause there. I'm sure there's a lot of questions. And I'll see, if you guys would like to take back the time.
Any board members have questions?
Is 35 years the average lifespan of these of this project? Is that where you got the 35 years?
No, it's just purely from tax modeling perspectives. An energy project in general is it's projected to be in perpetuity. Once you have energy back on the grid, it's very difficult, but potentially unwise to take it off. Just exactly why Palisades is coming back on. We desperately need more electricity. So really, you should think about these facilities in perpetuity. We just model for tax purposes 35 years.
Anyone else up here?
Could you maybe explain again, the breakdown of the tax benefits, where they're going?
Yeah, sure. So there's a couple different buckets. One, the state of Michigan has the $2,000 per megawatt, which would be paid out. So that's $400,000 separate bucket. That's one bucket. The second bucket is what's called a community benefits agreement, and that's that $100,000 per year to be distributed or to be reallocated as you all see fit. And that would be for the lifespan of the project, so in perpetuity potentially. And then the third bucket is really tax revenue. And I'm looking at what's projected. These are taxes based on personal property, so they're tied to the cost of the system. And as we've all experienced with tariffs, costs can come up and down very, very readily. And so I'm saying to you $5 million is a conservative figure. However, it could very well, our current tax analysis shows actually higher. But I'm just trying to be conservative.
Okay, thanks.
And that's just for the township. That's not for the school district. That's not for the Van Buren, and that's not for Van Buren.
Anyone else at the table?
I know, we were made aware that there was a conversation that happened on, I think it was May 1st, and Laura, I think you were involved in that conversation.
My date recollection is not very good, but perhaps.
Was this a site plan?
Just with, I think it was you and Supervisor
I
Spicer.
think the date was a little earlier than that, but
Okay.
yes, we all. had it.
I'm just wondering, can you provide like a general update of where we are in the process? Because I know there's been a lot of different pathways discussed and a lot of starts and stops on different, I guess, means of getting to the end of this. So
Yeah.
where you filed with the state, I know, but now we're in current negotiations back again with the workable.
So we have not filed anything with them. I
Okay,
wanted to have this conversation. Maybe if we go back 2.5 years ago, from the very beginning, I know actually everyone here, I think, was probably a part of those conversations. It's Vesper's intent to always work through the local permit process until it becomes untenable. I think we've shown through a lot of patience and that we really do take that very seriously. We were working with adjacent landowners to gain more site control. A lot of that came out of concerns raised by a now planning commissioner who pointed out wetland concerns. And so we, not at an insignificant cost, went out and acquired options on adjacent properties. We are currently working through technical due diligence on those properties, including wetland delineations, including geotech. Every single time we acquire or more property, we have to do a litany of environmental studies on those properties. And so that's kind of what we're hoping to wrap up by the end of the month. Once we are there, then I have hoped to be able to provide you with a more updated site. And what that would include is kind of, as many buffers as we can possibly include, water detention areas. We are a little bit at the mercy of that connection study process. So there is not a rule around interconnection facilities and the sizing. So we kind of take our best guess, a really conservative guess, and we try to build that into the site plan that we will, I hope to present to you kind of by maybe the end of July, but unfortunately, a lot of these environmental studies have to be conducted during certain times of the year or under certain conditions. So we're tracking every day and constantly nagging our environmental consultants about it. So.
And I don't know, are we, because of where we're at with conversations with them, are we pausing on consideration of overlay district and things like that went through to the county? And I guess I'm just looking for like, where are we at the moment?
I think what you're gonna get from the planning commission is a multiple. You got the overlay district, you got the usable, and you're gonna have just a creel from the state. And that will be brought to probably the township board to pick and choose which one they want. I think what they're offering and what they're looking at is on 50th Street, and I think they're working on a plan there to be very safe, and they're going to provide us information on things that they're gonna prove to us that they can operate that not only safely, but if you have an accident, how it's gonna affect the neighboring properties and how far it'll go away and what we have to do. And the original analysis that they have right now, it doesn't look like it's gonna make it much past their property boundaries. With that, we will have public hearings. The planning commission, they're making a modification, probably will give us another request for zoning compliance to add a section across the street from 50th to their plan, and they're gonna have probably their switching yard on the east side, and the west side will be the batteries, and then we'll run that through the process and get an ordinance for that as they're workable, and at the same time, try to get the overlay one also approved so that there's a choice here, and this is probably going to be a public choice. Go ahead, Laura.
Can I jump in and build on that as well? This is all about battery storage. We still have the wind and solar, I think, that are hanging out there that may not go back. You don't have a developer for those proposing a workable ordinance. So even if this is going back to planning commission to come up with a proposed workable ordinance, you still have wind and solar.
Yeah. Go ahead.
And may I add, when we're doing all these technical studies, the shifts in the site plan can be, not insubstantial. And so, but we are very comfortable with the fact that we will beat the state requirements. So, the setbacks as opposed to 300 feet from residence, we'll say will be 350. Like that is why we're going through this process, is that we believe that we can very comfortably beat those state requirements. And that is really what, in addition to all, the community benefits agreement, the taxes and all that, is that we are actually giving you a better product for your citizens than if we were to go through the state process.
Okay. Did the draft ordinances that the planning commission adopted or recommended go through the county PC yet, Kurt?
next
No.
week, I believe.
next week?
They didn't have a meeting last
Okay,
month.
cool. Thank you.
Everyone done up here?
Mhm.
Anyone in the audience have a question for Vesper? Go ahead.
So if you were to sell this piece of land at some point, where's the guarantee that those revenues would still be in place for the county?
Yes,
The township?
so permits would be tied to the actual project, so. And let's say an outside entity, let's say consumers could easily modify it like this. Consumers would inherit all rights and responsibilities tied to the project level LLC, which would include. And Laura, please pipe in if you disagree, would include any rights and obligations that we would sign as a part of our permit, so that, you know. That community benefits agreement, that as a part of acquiring the project, they would have to uphold it. And that includes safety, that includes, you know, related.
Okay, I'm Dixie Kovach. I heard what you're saying, that you want to put in a multi-million-dollar project in Columbia Township, and that the dollar amount that would come back to the township would be $100,000. I just looked at our fire department's budget. They had $75,000 worth of personnel cost in 2001. This year, they had $109,000. That's a 40% increase, okay? Excuse me, that's a 10% increase. So in essence, you're saying that Columbia Township would receive $5 million over 35 years. That's $142,000 a year. As we know, with inflation going up from 75,000 to 109,000 in 4 years, 142,000 is not a lot of money. So for all of us in the community to actually take on the risk of having fire and hazards and everything else regarding this, in the end, it might be costing us money as opposed to having it to be a benefit to the community. And the other thing too is I've worked in the tax credit incentive area for a Fortune 200 company. And I know that when we work that project, we know our numbers. So when you're saying we have no idea what they are, you do know what they are, because you won't be able to line up the money to do these projects or a lot of the other things without it. So it would be nice if you would be a little more open with us.
I didn't actually get a point.
You can answer that.
So again, there's 3 buckets of money. One is the $400,000 that is required, and that's payable upon the first year, and that's required by state law.
So that's a one time.
That's a one-time thing. So this is where your numbers are off.
Okay.
Then there's the $100,000 community benefits agreement, which is in perpetuity. Then there is the tax revenue, which we only model 35 years. I have Princeton Young conducted the tax analysis. That is based upon a system cost. I don't have a final system cost because, you know, prices are fluctuating right now. And so I said a conservative estimate of what I can give you is at $5 million. And that's just the taxes. So it's likely higher than that, but I always kind of try to under promise over deliver. And so I anticipate it'll be higher than the $5 million, but out of, you know, not
Okay,
trying to
so
lie to you, I don't
Okay,
promise.
based on your analysis, year one, what amount would be coming off in taxes?
Conservative estimate is $1.5 million year one
To Columbia Township?
to Columbia.
And then do we have to multiply that by the millage rate?
Excuse me,
That
it's
would-
600, I misspoke, the total tax revenue amongst of all the parties is around $2 million, if I'm being very conservative. Just to Columbia Township, the current tax analysis is something like $500,000, if I'm being very conservative.
Okay, so it's a 400,000 first year plus 100,000. Okay, but then in year two, it's gonna drop down to,
Again, my conservative number is several $100,000 below. So, you know,
Right.
let's call it 475.
so how is that 475 going to be made up?
how's,
What were those components of the 475?
there's the tax bucket, which would be a conservative estimate of 475,000. There's a community benefits agreement, which is 100,000, so let's call it 575,000.
He's saying the 475 would come in to the town.
Would come into the town.
One time only.
No, that's the, and I'm not trying to speak for him, but just to try to bridge the community, what I'm hearing is they're gonna pay property taxes, and
Right.
that's how much they're gonna pay in property taxes.
Right, but how much is coming to Columbia Township? 10% of that, 40 grand?
That's, the numbers I'm citing to you are, that's
Columbia.
100% just Columbia Township. That's not including the school district, that's not including the Appearance Independent School District, that's not including the county. That is just Columbia Township.
For
And I
personal
can tell you
property.
that the total tax rolls for the township are something in the magnitude of 600,000, is that correct, Supervisor Spicer?
I don't know.
I'm fairly confident in saying that this project will be the largest taxpayer in the township.
So you're saying,
Yeah, that's probably easy to say.
but still, I think that it's important for us to know what our numbers are going to be for some years out, because we don't want to get a big bump up in year 1, and then in year 5, only have a little bit of money coming in. So I think that it's important for us to figure out exactly what the projected numbers are per year and what we should expect for 35 years.
So, and again, I'm trying to be conservative in my giving you estimates, I was getting a
And
little
I don't
bit,
know if this will confuse it more, but it's related. Are you putting in your calculations a tax abatement? So are these numbers after tax abatement or what?
these
our
numbers
current
are
tax
no
rate.
tax abatement, and we will not be pursuing a tax abatement for the project anymore.
You're not.
And the reason for that is that there was updated guidance from the state of Michigan, so the way energy storage facilities are taxed is when we started this conversation 2.5 years ago, it's somewhat different. And so because of that, we are not gonna be pursuing a tax abatement.
That makes sense.
So these numbers that I'm telling you now are, listen, I understand the lack of clarity, it can be somewhat infuriating, but I'm trying to kind of bridge a gap of not lying to you and promising you the world won't be what is a reasonable estimate. I mean, with personal property taxes, you know, it's the decline from them is not, $475,000 to zero. It's 475, 450, 450 to 450.
So what is the depreciation and amortization schedule on that type of property?
What is it, current or?
No, I mean, like, what is drop off here? I mean, it starts out at 100%, and then it goes down to what percent in year 10?
I am, oh, year 10, you would like year 10 estimate?
Yeah.
So. So everyone knows this is riveting television, having me look at a tax model live. Let's call it $100,000. So, or excuse me, yes, $100,000. And again, like any personal property tax, it pays a significant amount of money and then it declines.
Right, so you said it started out though at 100,000 and it goes, and it's still at 100,000 in year 10?
No, it starts out at a conservative estimate would be $500,000, a conservative estimate.
Okay. So it's $1,000 in year 1, but in year 10 it's 100,000.
And then again, that's just the tax portion. That's the community benefits agreement is tied the same amount every single year. So, you know, that is not getting amortized. That is a consistent source of revenue. And, you know, maybe it's not I hope it's not everybody's expectation that this project will cover every single cost across the township. That's not what these projects are supposed to do. This is a great tax payer for the township. But, you know, certainly, you know, if that's the goal, then, you know, unfortunately, you know, I'm not gonna be able to sit here and fulfill those expectations.
I have a quick one if I can. Do you mind if I ask you a quick one? Okay. The community benefits agreement, typically happens in the state process. Is it your expectation you would do that even through the local permitting process?
Yeah, so that's, and I stood up here 2.5 years ago. And I said to you that if we were able to get an abatement. That we would try to make that up to you all in the taking it to the schools. We're not getting that abatement. But because the tax guidance was more favorable for these projects. I still thought that it was in alignment with our values and our promises to come back to you. And say, regardless of whether we go through the state permit process, whether we go through the local permit process. We will pay you $100,000 for these community benefits agreements. So if we go through the state permit process. I'm still committed to signing those community benefits agreements with you. That may be us passing up leverage, but when we started this process, that was, you know. That was basically the intent, and I feel like that is in alignment with our values and morals.
I got a couple more questions. First thing, does whatever it is that you're going to install here qualify for the 35% federal credit?
Are you talking about the 30%? Yeah, so it currently
Okay.
qualifies for the 30% ITC.
ITC, okay. And then also, are you going to provide all of the documentation as to the energization schedules and how much equipment you're going to be putting in and all of that and the values? So therefore, we can take a look at it to see exactly what will be coming projected to Columbia Township. And then we'll do a cost benefit analysis to really determine whether it's good for our township to have something like this.
So again, I don't have final numbers for you because we haven't ordered the equipment, so. I'm sure we've all experienced this with eggs, you know, you go to the grocery store and one day they're $7, the next day they're $4. So I always take a conservative estimate on, and we kind of, you know, when we project what our, equipment will cost, then we kind of back into what our taxes are. When we actually buy the equipment, you know, our site plan will include the equipment and it will include the total. And then we are, you know, I'm happy to kind of provide you a range of figures of what I project the equipment will cost, and you can create your own tax model and analyze it from there, but, you know.
Well, and you're probably presenting something to the Public Service Commission, right? So therefore, we would probably the same package.
Yes, if we decide to go through the Michigan Public Service Commission versus for the state permit versus the local permit, yes, we will. I believe it's a good question. I actually don't remember off the top of my head if we have to provide them with a tax model, but that's a good follow-up for me to know. But the real answer is I'm giving you my best estimate. I'm being conservative as possible with figures. This project, whether you're looking at the 3 kind of buckets of revenue for the township, will be significant. The only way this all happens is if this project actually gets built. And if it doesn't get built, then this is all purely hypothetical question and you know.
Hey, I have one follow-up question. We really didn't come to the conclusion of Columbia Township will receive the $400,000 initial plus $100,000 a year. And year 2, the $400,000 they do not get, right? They only get the $100,000, okay? And then that goes out.
Plus the tax revenue,
Yeah.
Plus the tax rate.
you know, and then you should be saying, the personal property tax, it's a lot different than your actual land tax.
Yeah.
You guys are getting the whole thing, not freaking 6.9%.
So maybe it's helpful to put into context what those properties are currently paying in tax revenues. If I'm correct, it's about $5,000 for each property. So when we're talking about like the magnitude of difference between like the benefits of this project and then the current tax rate, this is something that can allow, you know, your elected officials to say, hey, you know we needed to, you know, we wanted to examine raising taxes in the next 5 years. We have, let's say, a low estimate of $200,000 per year. Maybe we can put that off, or we can upgrade our infrastructure. I know I listened to as you guys know, I listened to all the public hearings, and I heard the fire department talking about a building that is uninhabitable. You know, this is what we're not talking about, you know, when we're talking about taxes, we wanna look at what could this project help solve? And what could it put off in the future? And if you're consistently not able to upgrade your infrastructure, there's only really two avenues. You can either bring in businesses that will pay taxes, or you can raise property taxes on the existing citizens. And I think this project for you know, there are very few things that pay as high a taxes as energy storage facilities do in such a small footprint. The other one I can think of is data centers. So, you know, I know maybe that doesn't satisfy all your questions, and maybe there's not an answer that, you know, alleviates all your concerns, but this project is going to undoubtedly have significant tax on it that's real about
But I have one more thing. The thing of it is we don't know how much it's going to cost our township in order to provide the services that your structure is going to need.
So there are no services to it. So,
Well, I mean, okay, it catches on fire.
yeah, so the modern fire safety techniques for battery storage systems are non-interference with them. So essentially, other than maintaining the area around the perimeter of the fence, the fire department would not be entering the facility. The cleanup would be at that first cost. In fact, we have, as part of the language in the ordinance, language around their designs to should the locality incurring costs related to an event, that's where we'll reimburse them. There's financial securities in place, there's decommissioning bonds in place, in the language within the ordinance that we, you know, even the initial ordinance that we provided to you guys. You know, the locality has many avenues of protection. And the intent is that basically there will be little to no interaction with any need for social services. You know, sometimes people say, oh, well, you know, we could build more homes in this area. And, you know, what would happen with that is then a burden to the school system. You know, they potentially have kids, those bring costs. This facility has little to no interference or need for, you know, costing taxes to the township. So, you know, and the net, if you want to look at it, the net profit is like very positive for a community versus other kind of uses.
Thank you.
Of course, thank you for the question.
Okay, I understand the financial.
Is it okay? I'm sorry. My back.
Yeah. Fancy bags. I understand the financial advantages, and that's gonna appeal to a lot of people in our county, in our township. But a lot of us live here because of the natural landscapes. And when you talk about the fact that it doesn't cost us anything, it may be an environmental cost if there's a fire. Okay, that maybe you clean it up and maybe it goes into our water system. This is something I think a lot of us are really concerned about.
Yeah.
And I'm curious as to why you picked wetlands, which, by the way, we wouldn't build houses on a wetland anyway. Okay, so that's a no-brainer. But I'm curious as to why you wouldn't find a brownfield that already had an industrial site on it. Why you wouldn't build something on a site like that rather than a natural land. That is a wetlands, and our wetlands are extremely important to us. And
Yeah.
environmentally in this area, they are.
Yeah, so part of we were talking about the type of due diligence that we're doing. So there are different types of wetlands. One is US Army Corps of Engineers regulated. Those have to be contiguous to body of water. There's other ones that are kind of not contiguous to a body of water. So our intent is to not build in any wetlands. That's why we're going through wetland delineation study. So if you look, that there are data out there that shows you wetlands. A field wetland delineation study involves an environmental consultant engineer to go out and actually look for little indicators and put them in. And that's why we've taken a little bit longer on this process than maybe we hoped. is because we're conducting field level remediation. So the intent is to not build in the wetland. You know, there are portions that, maybe to go into the brownfield conversation. So, when I started this career, 6 years ago, I just thought brownfields were everywhere and that they were, and that they fit kind of, you know, I was kind of constantly trying to find brownfields. And there's, unfortunately, brownfields often don't fit the actual requirements that we need for an energy storage facility. And the main requirement, kind of the first highest overarching requirement is that it needs to be adjacent to existing electrical infrastructure, specifically that transmission line or another transmission line. And I've gone up and down that line, you know, dozens and dozens of times, and I have not been able to find a brownfield. And believe me, I have economic incentive to do that because there's an investment tax credit for siting projects in a brownfield. So my bosses would love me if I found a brownfield to put this in. But quite frankly, I haven't been able to find one that fits the requirements that we would need. So, you know, that is, as you say, always the best practice and always the goal. However, that doesn't necessarily fit really how our grid works and how our grid is built out. And so we need to like look at the actual realities of the ground. So we do quite a bit of robust analysis. You know, I've walked through, you know, I think several supervisors could tell you that I walked through and shown them this very fancy software of like, hey, this is why we didn't do this. This is why we didn't do this. This is why we have to design the site from this. I spent quite a bit of time trying to find out the evidence and trying to work out a best case scenario.
Huh?
Um,
We'll try to keep doing that, Dan.
so I know you got a lot, you know, you got stuff still to do, right? In terms of getting projects started, you got to have money in the bank to do it, right? So what's your capital sources right now? Or you have the funding in place, and is part of that any grants that may be at risk given what we're seeing from the federal government these days?
Yeah, so there's no grants. In fact, the only grant that could potentially be tied to the project, actually the revenue for the township, there's a program where if you do permit through the local permit process, the state of Michigan has a fund set aside that I think still has funds that would go to the town. But that's another source of revenue that can potentially come through this process. In terms of funding, it's as you said, it's a little early, so we do typically finance a project after a special use permit is acquired or an off-taker is acquired. That's probably a year or two away. The interconnection study for this part of the country is very delayed. And so instead of what we originally thought would be a 4-year process, it's going to become a 6-7 year process. So we're still about a year away, but we constantly have conversations with investors who are very interested by these projects, investors who own their own projects and operate them and have long experience with owning and operating assets.
So it's primarily going to be debt financing, some equity to satisfy the banks, I suppose.
Yeah. I mean, I wish I was smart enough to tell you all the different financing that goes into, you know, tens of millions of dollars of infrastructure, but you know, I'm sure you guys actually know the theory about it. It's fairly complicated, and we're just not there yet with outside investors want to see a little bit further developed project before they're really kind of invest in the project.
Yeah.
Anybody else?
How many how many storage systems are you currently owning and or operating?
So Vesper does not own or operate any systems yet. And the reason for that is that, you know, when a lot of the development life cycle, you know, this area is a great example, takes that 5 to 6 year interconnection. And so really what you're going to see is Vesper in the next 2 to 3 years have probably about 4 to 5 assets across the country. I personally have developed, assets that I have developed that are owned and operated by Dominion Energy and then another company named HIPA. So Dominion Energy is actually I grew up in Michigan, but now I live in Virginia. So my utility owns and operates my company. And that kind of went through the same process, same due diligence process, same conversations, and we got that community comfortable with the project. And, you know, one of my best friends lives a mile away from the project, and he always told me he doesn't even know it's there.
Yeah.
So, you know, I'm certainly, I develop in communities where he's actually brings a lot, but I develop in communities where I grew up, so. Hopefully that.
No, I understand. I was told about one in Cleveland. I don't know what your affiliate is. There's one nearby. I don't know who owns it.
Oh, really?
And I went looking for it and it's so small I couldn't find it.
Yeah,
I mean,
well,
they're almost indiscernible in the landscape. I couldn't locate it.
yeah, they're somewhat like substations, you know, actually a huge amount of components are like substations. You know, we kind of drive by a substation and barely even notice it nowadays. You know, unless you knew that it was a battery energy storage facility, you would be like, oh, that's just a somewhat souped up substation.
Okay, I think it's time we can move on. Richard, thank you very much for coming tonight. Sorry that you got hammered with the budget stuff, but
No, these are important issues. And
we do have a few people that are quite the financial people in our group, which is good to have.
Yeah.
So thank you. Our next thing on the agenda is public comment. Darren?
Okay. So why is our police fund a voted millage, whereas the fire fund is an open-ended special assessment district or SAD? And why did some of our citizens attempt to recall the whole board back when the SAD was established in 1999? These rhetorical questions are not posed for rebuttal by the only common denominator here, but for others to reflect upon. Why would any board member deny their citizens the opportunity to vote on a taxation matter? Capital improvement needs did not develop overnight, and 249,000 in ARPA funds could have been utilized toward current needs. But in 2022, those funds were spent on other priorities. I share basic public support to maintain a safe fire department, but I believe I'm in the majority that opposes any new tax. The fire department has operated successfully on 2.0 mills for the last 15 years, often with an ending balance above 500,000. In 2019, they chose to expand into medical services. Liaison Spicer assured that board that it was affordable within the 2.0 mills. Yes, we were misled. Since then, they added 1 full-time staffer plus raised wages. However well-intentioned, they are now running low on funding looming capital improvements. Board members have suggested budget cuts that the emergency services officials are not willing to make. We, the people, want a voice in every matter of taxation, and a public hearing or two was no substitute for an actual ballot question in 1999, and it isn't now. There is another reason to put the matter on a ballot next year anyway. Change it from a special assessment district to a voted millage. SADs do not apply taxes against personal property values, which would be a huge opportunity lost if Vesper's Gypsum Peak project proceeds. We find ourselves in an interesting crossroad where a somewhat unwelcome industry could potentially solve a funding dilemma in exchange for a calculated risk that Vesper representatives will have to defend. It would seem unwise to me for a single township official to do all the negotiation without another board member present. trustee Bull is the most informed on this topic and already has some rapport with Vesper representative. On a different note, I think it's great that Kitty offered to attend the transfer station for free, but I think she should be paid for her trouble if you decide to have her do that during the week. Thank you.
Any other public comment? Moving on to the consent agenda. Meeting minutes from the previous meeting. Everyone, had a look at that. Any comments on it?
I'll make a motion to approve the previous minutes.
Second.
Motion by Mary, second by Gary, comments? All in favor, say aye.
Wouldn't we be voting to approve the entire consent agenda?
Yeah.
We normally do that, I thought. Okay. We're not ready for
Is that what you meant to motion, Mary?
Yes.
For all of it in payroll?
Mhm.
Okay,
I make a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
anyone got questions on payroll and expenditure? Treasurer's report?
I've given it to you.
Yep.
Second.
I'm stealing from Gary.
Oh, second it. Oh, cause you always got it.
Roll call. Oh, Mary,
Yes.
Gary,
Yes.
Jason,
Yes.
Cara,
Yeah.
Ken, yes. That took care of G1, G2, G3, moving on to H. Reports, Sheriff's Department.
I printed his report and gave you all a copy.
So the thing,
Yeah.
I looked that over. The only thing that I would ask is if there's any way we could add a line to that about blight. So we could just know, Jeremy, like how many calls you got or. If we could add that to it. so we- Okay, thanks.
Pretty routine month, 63 overall calls, majority of which in traffic stops, we've seen a spike in assaults in the area for the last 30 days. And the weather's getting nicer, people were cooped up with their family and now they're outside and they're fighting about it, so. Had a number of accidents, in the area as well. There's, now the weather's nicer, it does not mean go faster, just want to make sure all of the township residents understand, still gotta obey the traffic laws. Stop at a four-way stop, lots of people down the main 4-3 would love to run that sign, so. Just make sure everyone's abiding by traffic laws.
County Commissioner?
First off, I apologize. Last month I was at legislative meetings up in Lansing. And we had some things to discuss up there. One was that our veterans service officer was just at our meeting. And they were promised an amount and then they were cut $27,000. And so when we were up there, we asked, we had some of the legislators in front of us and asked why. They couldn't tell us, but, well, stay tuned, I guess. So, that was a big thing. It was $27,528 that they took away after it had been promised and it had been appropriated. So we're okay. We have 3 VSO officers. They had to cut back on some of the other things that they do. But we won't lose any officers. As a matter of fact, they're thinking we'll probably wind up with more veterans from other counties once these cuts take place, because the other counties don't have the good veteran service officers like we have. So, and I asked her, these books came out, something different. Just wanted to point out this year in this county directory on the second page, there's you can sign up for notifications and such. Did you get enough for everybody? No?
I got one.
Did you guys all get one?
I have one.
Okay.
Okay. What else do you, did you get one?
I don't think I have.
Okay. So, yeah, if you need any information, you can get on there and look at it. While I was up there, I am now on the State Transportation and Infrastructure Committee, and also the Environmental Natural Resources, Ag and Tourism Committee for MAC, so a lot more meetings, so. Any questions?
I don't remember. I saw it on the MTA site. That there were some cuts. And maybe that's where part of this 27,000 is coming in, because it had to do with counties. And states.
Yeah, there were more cuts than just veterans. This is just the one that's really kind of hit home and like I said, they promised it and then cut it and took it back, so.
Inflation.
You're right. Yeah, inflation, yeah, so. Anything else?
No,
All right.
thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Kurt.
County Road Commission?
From Burles, it's, Burleson's out, well, I don't know if he's actually at his granddaughter's softball game since the weather's been so bad. I'm Brett Bukowski, I'm the Director of Road Commission. I try to get out once a year to every township. So this will take up a little bit of time, not quite as long as the battery guys, so. One of the things that we, last year, we had to really, 2 years ago, when I came on was, there was talk about building a new garage in Bangor. With the inflation and all the COVID funds are out there and all the competition for contractors. The price of that bond went from about 400,000 a year to 1.2 million a year, which was way too much. And so the board postponed that. Instead, what we're doing is fixing up our facilities. I'm not a big believer in building new unless you take care of what you got. And our, I think the first 2 days, our maintenance guy gave me a list of things like $390,000 worth. One was like a roof over our salt building in Bloomingdale that had been on the wish list for 13 years. So we are going through all of our facilities, getting them up to speed, code, whatever word you want to put with it. Last year we spent, I think, $374,000. If you go down M43, if you go by that garage, it does look a lot better than it has. We put roofs on a lot of different places. This year we'll probably hit 350 on our facilities. I'd hope it would take 3 to 4 years. It's probably going to take 5 to 7. Because as you know, once you get going, it's like a remodel project, right? Take whatever they give you and double it, and that's usually what it ends up. So we're spending, doing a lot on that. Last year, we were very thankful the road millage passed. That generates about 3.3 million in the county, and then we share it with the townships at the tune of about 38,000. We call it rev share. The money stays in our bank accounts, but then the township can allocate it for roads, the local roads. And in essence, we just pay the bill, so that works out pretty good. One of the things that we have to work on is we're looking every way we can to save money. And so we had contracted for roadside mowing, and they did a good job. They got paid by the mile, so sometimes they'd go pretty fast. Didn't get as deep as we wanted, so we ended up buying 2 more mowers. We had 2 already, and each one cost us $180,000. We were spending over $200,000 on roadside mowing a year. And they came to me and said, hey, we can't hold the price anymore. They had held it since I think 2020, which is a long time. And so probably would have went to 250. So this year we come out ahead. The mowers have a 10-year lifespan. So that should save us about 1.6 million that we'll end up putting on the roads over the next decade. And I think they did a really good job. As quirky as it may seem, we won a state award for roadside mowing. So 1 for taking it over. And 2 for cost efficiency. And we try to get to every township now 3 times a year, where before it was twice. And we've been mowing now for 2.5, 3 weeks. I think we've got 3 or 4 of the 18 townships done already. We've been having 4 guys out almost every single day out there doing roadside mowing. last 3 months of 2024. I'm very aggressive. We go after every pot of money we can find to help. We got 8.6 million in grants the last 3 months. Our match is 5 million. And so our fund balance, we're gonna keep it between 20 and 25%. If it gets below 20, we gotta pull back a little bit. If it gets above 25, then we need to put more money on the roads. So that's, a lot of places have a lot more fund balance than that, but that's where we're at the road commission. At the end of last year, we were very fortunate. I think we might have been the only county in the state that had every township had a road millage. All 18. Porter has an assessment, which is the same thing as a millage. But I'm very fortunate to do that. Where we're struggling with, and if you want to pick up the phone and call your state rep and your state senators, is funding through what's called Act 51, is through the pump tax when you go and buy gas, or when you go and register your vehicles. We are just getting clobbered like that. Since 2020, we get 12.5 million a year. We should be at 14.5 million if we were just to keep pace with inflation since 2020. So we're losing about almost 2 million a year to inflation since 2020. Since then, we're 6.5 million short of what we should have had just to keep pace with inflation since 2020. There is a bill that the House has passed, and it's sitting in the Senate. Now, how they get there is 2 different ways, but you know, locally, like you as a board, you listen to your constituents, you compromise, and you do what's best for your township. I wish that was the case in Lansing. I wish that was the case in Washington. So the only way they're going to do anything is if you put pressure on. And all you got to do is call them and say, pass the bill, get it through. Some of the other things that we've had challenges with, and it all comes down to money. And you know, we don't, when people ask us, you know, do this and that, when we don't, it's only because we don't have the money. It's not because we don't want to. Just give you an idea, we have 30 miles of road. We have 1,300 miles of roads. So when we plow, we basically plow from Lawrence to Fort Lauderdale, Florida, and back every day. That's how many miles of roads we have. We have 37 plow routes. I think we've got 52 plow trucks. The fuel bill just in January alone, and of course we had a lot of snow, was $30,000. And that's buying it wholesale, not paying the gas tax. But just to give you an idea, we get 12.5 million. Kalamazoo County, which has 30 miles less than us, they get 27.5 million. So they get over 2 times the money we get. Why is that? So on county roads, if it's in an urban district, which we don't have that much except around Paw Paw, Mattawan, and South Haven, for every mile of urban or primary road, county road, we get, or everybody gets $13,000 more per mile. If it's a local street like 54th, then it's $3,000 per mile. And so they have Portage and they have all those areas which has high development. What has hurt us is the federal government in 2023, instead of using the US Census to determine what's an urban district, or urban versus rural, what off the population, which had been used for 80 years, and decided to go off residential rooftops. And so there's one community in the state of Michigan that benefits more now than anybody from residential rooftops, and that's the city of Detroit. Didn't mean they have to be occupied. Just meant residential rooftops. They probably have it up to, or at least 50 to 100,000 abandoned residential rooftops. We as a county lost 26 miles because of that. So figure that out, 26 miles with a combination of either 13 or 3,000 miles. That adds up to about $150,000 per year. So we as a county will lose $1.5 million a year. It's stuck, it's the way it is. We appealed one area in Paw Paw and got it back, but that's just a drop in the bucket. Surprisingly, the areas that we lost, Antwerp Township lost 20 miles. So even though they're growing, their families are bigger, and if you look at Manawha schools, you know, they're growing a lot. Paw Paw lost 4 miles. Waverly and Almena added about 6, Hartford Township lost everything at 12. We had 12 urban miles, and here it gives you an idea, South Haven Township, which is losing population, but has the second homeowners, we picked up 3 miles there. So those are the type of things that we have to deal with. We did win some awards. You heard me say we won the roadside mowing. One of the things I pushed when I came is we need to kind of grow our own leaders. We can't financially compete with Kalamazoo County. We just can't. You just heard what I said. We get 12.5, they get 27.5 million. And it's hard to compete with a lot of the construction companies. If you have younger people, they don't always see the benefit of healthcare or retirement. They see, and I get it, they get paid twice as much. So I asked our staff to HR develop a leadership program, and we have 64 employees. I think 13 or 14 took advantage of it. And they meet once a month. They learn how to lead. They learn how to use a computer, which you'd be surprised. They learn how to communicate the right way without yelling at people. You know, just the things that you have to do to be in leadership. And I can say of our last 3 supervisor positions, so it goes the board of commissioners, then it goes myself, then the head of HR operations and engineering, then there's 3 supervisors that take care of the facilities, the equipment, ditches, which is a lot, tree removal. Like this past weekend, I think we had 150 or 200 trees we had to move. I know that we finally got the last roads open yesterday because of down power lines. And then roads like plowing and seal coating. And those last 3 have all come through the program. So I think that's good for us. The other thing that we did well, got recognized at the state was, I'm a big believer in trying to be part of the community, and we had reached out to the schools, the art departments, and did a paint a plow. And I think all but 2 or 3 high schools participated, I think all but 2. And that was, you know, we get comments like on new roads, oh, that's great. You put a plow out there, a bunch of kids that blew up our Facebook, which was great. I think in the first hour we had people vote. I think we had 2,000 people vote, and you could only vote once. My millennial who's into this made sure that you tracked every IP address, so you could only vote once. So Goble Schools won that, and we did a pizza party, which I paid for. It did not come out of our funds. And then our one of our engineers won Programmer of the Year. There's only one of those in the entire state for the work done on 388. Just a couple things going on with us. Seal coating is a big deal. If you go out, that's that liquid tar and then the rocks, and we put the tar over that. Why do we do it? We do it because we don't have enough money to put the road to do a overlay or redo it. So this is a way to give the roads usually an extra 10 years of life. Roads are rated between a 0 and a 10. Most roads that we do are between 2, 4, and 5 or 6. Once they're seal coated, they move to an 8. Now, how long it stays, that I can't tell you. It just depends on the road. Biggest change you'll see in that is, in the past, when we seal coated, it might take us 6 to 8 weeks to come back in the fog season. And that creates some challenges. Those roads are dark when they're seal coated. And the challenge is, if we don't have any lines painted on them, that makes it a challenge. Especially on heavily traveled roads like Blue Star and Red Arrow. But, you know, every road's important, right? Especially if you live on it. And so one of the things that we deal with, there's only 4 companies in the state that paint the yellow lines that you see on the road. And we will spend $500,000 painting those lines. So this year, what we've done, we've got an older piece of equipment, and we're gonna start June 9th. We're gonna start seal coating. About 2.5 weeks later, you'll see the crew come through with fog seal, and then hopefully we get the paint crew in here quickly after that. Number 1, it'll be more efficient. Number 2, our guys are excited because they hate doing the same job for 8 weeks in a row in the blistering sun. Number three, most importantly, it'll keep our people safe. We'll have less people out there flagging. Sadly, that's how Renee was killed. He was flagging. I had another guy get his foot ran over through a road closed sign. And we lost in court. I mean, what's that tell you? Not just, and that wasn't too long ago. We lost in court. I don't know, 4 months ago. And I went out to see the driver afterwards because I was pretty livid. And every other word was an F word. And I'm like, I sure hope you didn't use that in court, but, you know, it's just tough. So my job is to keep them off the road as much as possible. We'll be putting door hangers on people's doors. We'll put wet tar signs. We'll still get a lot of calls because people will ignore those. As I tell my staff, they need to know that they're gonna go home to their kids. You know, I always ask, how many of you got kids? Everyone's got kids. Some are grown like mine, but they're still your kids. And so that's important to us. The other thing that's a big deal, if you have gravel roads, we will now do what's called a double chip seal on them if they want to become, and it looks just like asphalt. You can't tell the difference. It's a lot cheaper. It just, the biggest difference is the road has to be ditched. And the tree removes because the water's got to get off the road. If the water sits on the road, it'll tear the product apart. And when Ken and I met, that was one of the things we brought up. I think townships are starting to pick up on it. I think, over the next 5 years, as townships have money, it'll be a popular thing. If you got a gravel road that people are just tired of it and they want it to, in essence, be an asphalt road. And it's a lot cheaper. To do a new road for every mile, it's about $1.1 million. To do a mill bill is about $250,000. To do a double chip seal, if it's ready to go, is about $80,000 a mile. So you can see it's a lot cheaper. Just to give you an idea of where we're at money wise. If Van Buren County decided that they're gonna rebuild every road in this county. And in 2025 was the last year, we got the last section done. We would have started in 1859. That tells you where we're at money wise. Numbers don't lie, people do. You can run those numbers and you can make it worse. I gave a very good picture on that. Last thing is, I thought this was kind of interesting. What are the busiest roads in Columbia Township? We try to do a study every 3 years in every township. If you go towards South Haven, coming out South Haven, you'll see we have counters out there. If you see little air hoses, that's us counting roads around and we have 2 summer interns. That's their job. They set 8 of them a day, pick them up, record them, and just hit every one. County Road 388's got 3,604 vehicles a day. 384 is 1,763. County Road 215 is 1,500. County Road 380 is 800, and then 54th Street is 550. Those are the heaviest traveled roads, and I can send those to you if you want. I'm happy if the board wants to have any questions, or if you have anything from the audience.
Need to tell them about the drivers, when they drive those painted plow trucks and afraid they don't get paid for that.
Yeah, that's another good thing. Yeah, when you see parades going around, if you see our guys in the parade, that's on their own time. We allow them to come in and during hours and wash the trucks and get them ready. And we have automatic truck wash to help with that. But yeah, that's on their own time. They volunteer to do that on their own. People think we pay them. They don't even get comp time. It's just them wanting to do it. So good point, Commissioner. Yes,
The name of the bill that's in the state Senate right now?
road funding bill. I don't have the number in front of
Road funding
me.
bill.
Yeah, road funding bill. You have to pass the House, I think in March, and they went under 3-week spring break, and then it's been sitting there. Yes, sir.
Real quick, I know you guys mow. What about tree limbs that are hanging over the roads? I've been watching some of these just waiting to die, you know?
Yeah, so good question on that. We trim them when they actually start impeding traffic. We don't have the time for the personnel to go through. I know what you're saying. Sometimes honestly, they have to fall before we can spend the money to go get them.
Okay.
Now, if they get low where they're hitting semis, then we do have to come out, because then we have a legal liability. But you're right, we drive by some too, like, oh geez, you know, the first heavy wind, it's gonna blow over. So that's just a rationale, it's not, that comes down again to a funding issue. Where we just don't have the people or the manpower or the money to go out and do it. Thank you.
And on your website, there's a really easy form to report trees in the road. I've used it multiple
Yep.
times, so.
Yeah, it's called ClickFix.
Yep.
And we actually hit our 10,000 ClickFix, I don't wanna say customer or complaint, I guess that's what you ever wanna put, last week, so. The biggest one was trees, that was number one. Snow plowing, I think, was 3, I can't remember what the other ones. And the interesting part is, if you ever come to my office, and you've been there, I think, Ken, I'm not sure if you haven't. I have a big screen TV like that, I can see every vehicle anywhere in the county, and if I click it, I can tell you exactly what speed they're going. And when Johnny Doe says they never plowed my road, we can say, yes, they did, but it was 7:30. And then snowed 3 inches afterwards. Or when they say they plowed at 55 miles an hour, we're like, no, they went by at 34 miles an hour. And it does work. I have one in my own, I have a county car up here. So I live in St. Joe, and one day I'm in the office with my HR, and I'm like, pardon my language, who the hell is in Benton Harbor? And kept looking at it, and we're like, oh, that was me, but my radio had broke. And showed me still in Benton Harbor at my house, so we do track it. The drivers did not like it at first, but it's really for their protection. It really is. And it's a great system to have. Any other questions? I'll hang around after the meeting. I got some maps if you want them. I have some business cards, so thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Board members, anyone have any comments on their reports or something they wanna talk about? Or, Mary, I will say that you're saving money, making money
Making money, yeah.
on interest.
So
Very good.
we started investing, the only way the township can make money or have money is either to tax people more or to invest what we have. So we've been investing and it's a process, but we're doing it. So it's all in the report. Thank you.
Gary?
No, no, what's in the report's pretty easy. There's some unfinished phone calls that haven't been returned to me yet, but I'll work on those maybe tomorrow.
Hey, emergency services, JC.
We had 19 fire calls, 35 or 16 rescue calls last month. I find those numbers funny because last week, Friday, we had 16 calls in a day. That was rough. When you have 1 or 2 people there doing the lion's share of the work. And then we helped the county out trying to clear the roads because we had to get our emergency vehicles through. We almost put one into a tree. I'm like, well, we'll cut that one out the way. And then your boys showed up as we were working, so we tag teamed it together and we got it out the way.
Right.
What's that? Yeah, there it is. And I was really happy to see the front of the show up on that last week because that was a monster tree. I wasn't able to get through that one. Yeah, so that's the reports. As far as the number of calls going out, we are seeing, as Jeremy alluded to a little while ago, people are driving faster, therefore getting into crashes. And therefore mangling their bodies. So there's been a lot of that going on lately. Perhaps we need to slow down a little bit. And maybe not imbibe of the libations as much. That might be helpful. Seatbelts are a wonderful thing too. What else we got going on? Oh, so that's my reports, and then I head under there. Certain repair the stations. It's clear that we're not gonna be able to do anything as far as putting anything new in, so we're just gonna repair what we've got and hope for the best. I need lights first at station 1, so I can see what I've got to do, and then we'll worry about the plumbing, since we can't flush toilets there. Then after that, we'll work, make it look pretty by repainting. I don't think it's been painted in about a decade or so.
The hanging lights, are they plug in right now or are they hardwired?
Hanging lights?
The lights in
Can you
station one.
plug them into a plug-in up there or are they in a box where they're wired in? Do you need an electrician to replace
The
them?
electricity's got, yeah, I can't do that myself. Electrician's gonna do that. It's like these lights here. We're gonna, so if they're ballast, old ballast lights from the eighties, nineties, when, that stuff was put in. That was the original lighting system. So when we get that done, we've got one quote back in a month and a half now. So we'll probably just keep moving with that. You know, that's the way it goes when you ask people to give you a number and they don't want to, then I guess you don't want my business. So we're gonna work lights, then plumbing, and then paint, and that's the order of operations there. We still have part of the driveway at Station 2 chewed up. It's gravelled and nicely compacted now. But we need to top coat that somehow at some point. The sewage is fixed at Station 2. The line from the building out to the septic, that was damaged. We fixed that. And then when they, Joe hand dug up the, switch station or whatever, there's actually two septic fields there. Off of one tank and both lines were janked. One was crushed. The other was disconnected, so that's why it was backing up. There had no place to go. So, once we got into that, I had, Jensen's finished the job and just repair that. Joe put in some new risers, I authorized him just to do that. Because it was cheaper for us to do it than to have to pay somebody else to do it. So that's the septic, that's what we got going on with the stations and so forth. We're gonna try to put up that split rail fencing to make sure people don't drive across that. I was talking to Jensen's when they were out there, and he said, whoever put this in was inadequate to the task of putting in a septic field. And recommended that we put up some sort of a fencing so people wouldn't drive across there from our neighbors. So we're gonna go ahead and put that up. And then the last thing that we've got going on is the discussion about the mini pumper. We're coming to it where, in August, or was it September of next year, the engine outdates. I mean, it goes out of date and it becomes non-compliant. So, we do have, some help trying to find some grants and things, and there's a couple other dockets that we just saw today. That we're gonna try to do some for some small stuff, but we don't have anything for the truck itself, not to mention, you know. Our buildings are rusting away. Or, you know, someone says, well, we need to take care of the stuff, I agree. But when it's been taken care of for budgetary concerns so that we can show a fund balance. You know, you made it look good for, 15, 20 years by not doing anything. Yeah, we got all kinds of money there. That's because we didn't do anything. So we can do nothing. And have pieces of junk laying around, and then pretty soon we'll have a Blake officer coming around saying we gotta fix our stuff, or. So. With that mini pumper, there was options out there for financing and things like that. I dare anybody to tell me that they don't wanna have a responder come in, because I think that's just malarkey. During that, our weather that we had, I got a phone call from Bloomingdale Fire Chief in a panic. He goes, can you come help me? I have a structure fire. I'm like, excuse me? Dispatch was down. So we went back to the old way of doing things, and we called by phone, and we got out there to help them. And that's what we do. So. Questions, comments, concerns, funny stories?
Your fence that there, your split rail fence that you're looking to putting up, that's not gonna be in a problem with snow removal or anything, is it for?
It's gonna be out, it won't be anywhere near where those. snow will be piled.
You gonna put it by the asphalt?
No, it's gonna be on our property lines, so people won't drive through the property. That's the problem. People are driving through the property. over the top of the septic field, not knowing it's there, not our people.
Hmm.
And that's causing some of our problems.
Good.
And so we're gonna help everybody just pay attention to where they should and should not be.
Just the public is driving through it? So what do you mean people?
Yeah,
Probably.
and it's a great big field.
Hmm.
It looks like it's a fun place to go.
Hmm.
And so we do.
Any other
Common sense,
questions for Jason?
everybody would have it, right?
How big is this field?
Say again?
How big is this field you're talking?
Probably an acre, maybe total.
Wouldn't just put like a regular fence with fence posts around it, would that be cheaper? Or split rail just?
No, the fence costs about $5,000, and split rail would be like $800, something like that. We're gonna put the fence in ourselves.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
whereas the other one, we had to pay somebody else to do it, yeah.
Okay, unfinished business. I think I talked about where we're at with renewable energy, that we're gonna be working on the overlay district, the usable, and probably the state Creo. And then eventually it'll get to the board to decide which way to go. Or they may choose a couple ways to go. Laura, you got any,
I do, so are you envisioning, and earlier in the comment, you said that the planning commission would send up several for the board to choose from, that's not typically how the statute is written to.
you'll get a recommendation from the planning commission, which
On one
one?
of them,
Yeah,
and I realize the other one's already gone through the process, the Creo, so you're set, that doesn't have to go back through the planning commission.
that's probably gonna be revised.
Well, if it gets substantially revised, so you've got wind, solar and battery that the planning commission recommended up with the, Creo language. that
That's
we-
over the county right now.
Correct, that's at the
Okay.
county right now, so those could be adopted by the board at a future meeting, and you may want to do that for wind and solar.
Yep,
If the proposed workable for Vesper is going to be considered by the planning commission, that's fine, it'll go through that process, set for public hearing, also go to the county and come back before you, and then, yes, you can decide what you're going to adopt. But you're not gonna send the Creo one back to the planning
No.
commission. I just wanted to make sure I understood how you were picturing it, that way I just explained it is fine.
they're revising the workable.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes,
Yeah,
once the planning commission is ready to have a hearing on that, they can do that. I just wanted to make sure it wasn't like the planning commission isn't gonna send up multiple versions. Can't really do that.
Laura, do you have, it's my understanding that at state level, that the House has passed a bill and it's on to the Senate to reverse or maybe make less invasive or to get our authority back
Yep.
for, do you have any updates on that or are familiar with that?
I don't necessarily have an update, except, there's concern about a veto. So I don't know where it winds up necessarily until it happens. I don't count those such against. I will say, with all the municipalities we represent and all of those who have Creos, there are very few communities where the developers are showing up to move forward with with either state or local permitting processes. So, I can count them on one hand. And the other ones are solar.
Did that have anything to do with Foster Swift filing at all?
I'd love to think that I can take all the credit for it. I think change in political climate and incentives is likely a factor as well, particularly with wind. At the federal level, a lot of the incentives for that have been cut off. So again, there's a few going forward, but amongst our clients that I'm personally familiar with, very few are moving forward right now.
Assuming that the Senate also passes it and our governor does not veto it, which is probably a stretch, but where would that leave us in terms of where Vesper is in the process? Do you have any idea of that? Would they be grandfathered in because they started the process before this, or
No.
I mean, could that shut everything down and we just say, see you later?
Yeah, they would, well, you still, first of all, they wouldn't be grandfathered in because they don't have a project that's been built, so they don't have any vested right.
Wasn't there something about if they spent a certain amount of money in pre-development costs that they would be allowed to proceed?
Let me pull it, I'm actually not as familiar with
He
that
said
part
that
of
at the
it.
first meeting, he said they've already invested that too,
Yeah, but let me,
the best project.
I don't know the answer to that off the
Okay.
top of my head, I apologize.
Okay.
But where, as a practical matter, you still have exclusionary zoning law. I mean, I'm still not sure you can just say we prohibit them everywhere in the township either. I mean, you're just kind of back to pre-PA 233 times.
Right, but that would be pretty significant for us in terms of being able to decide
Yes.
where they go,
Very
the
much.
size of the district, you know, that sort of
Correct.
decisions we could make.
Yep.
As opposed to potentially our best option right now being try to work through a workable ordinance.
You would absolutely be in a better position
Yeah.
in terms of local control.
Thank you.
The cemetery. I think everyone saw Michigan Municipal League's, government immunity letter that was sent to Templeman's. And I've attached Templeman's document for what they were seeking from the township to do.
Well, there were two different cost factors that were presented by Marlene Templeman. And I know that the MML says that we're actually not liable or whatever. We did get a refund check of, I think, about $2,500 from the insurance company on the file, when we filed the insurance claim for the lights that were blown up and struck in a storm. So we did get $2,500 check from that. So my only comment is if we're going to do anything towards Templeman's situation, or with the township, both of these cost factors, we might be able to use that $2,500 towards the settlement of this, or good faith settlement. That's my only comment.
My question, Laura, would be, as you know, there's so many restrictions on what we can spend taxpayers' money on. Are we even able to consider this?
So you have effectively a pre-litigation claim, and you've got the letter from the insurance company saying, look, we think there's defenses to it. It's conceivable that you could face, a lawsuit for it, right? Somebody could file a lawsuit. If there were a lawsuit on the table, you could defend it fully, or you could settle it. So I think with it being a pre-litigation claim, you do still have flexibility to settle that claim.
Okay.
Not an obligation necessarily, but the other.
No, it's
Right,
not an
right.
application, but as long as we can do it, that gives us some,
You mean before any of that, so as to avoid any litigation?
Correct, because the settlement cost would presumably go up if you were.
Right.
so what is the total here? I've read so many.
Well, it's hard to tell.
They've got two different things here, so.
I added it up, if you did like the whole thing, it'd be around 7,800. And then if you did just,
You didn't add in the,
I added,
if it needs a new vault,
yeah, that's with that.
you skipped that one, right?
No,
You should have skipped that.
I know, but with the vault, it's 7,800. Without the vault, it's around 6,200.
I thought it, for some reason, was around 5,000.
Yeah, I didn't add it together.
That's including.
You got
Douglas's
Douglas's cost in there too?
With both estimates. I didn't add the 850 still owed.
Yeah, I wouldn't do
Is this double counted here? There's open and close 1900, but then he has a separate one for
Yeah, I'm not
open and close
sure.
1900. It almost looks like that's double.
Yeah, he's saying like in the Starks quote, it's 1900 and then Michael Douglas provided the same amount, so that could be the same thing. Because in the notes, it says opening and closing of new grave site.
Right.
So you're basically looking at the 5,029
If that's taken out.
if you take Douglas, well, Douglas still got money in there for new foundation. They getting a new foundation? Probably.
Yeah, maybe have to add the 661 and the 175 to one of these numbers, because I think the 1900 is already accounted for.
4292 for the cost without the vault, 4292. And the vault. 5900.
Would it be reasonable to split the cost of them?
That would be my suggestion. You get the money back from the,
But I think what we ought to do is like offer them 50% of the cost. That's showing that we're not being, you're not getting nothing that we feel bad about it.
They would still have the.
If they come back and
A
argue,
normal-
they could come back and argue with us, I
They could.
guess, if they want, but I think. I mean, that's an old grave site, that's,
Well, I wonder if we should postpone it because we should still have. We need to figure out, because they would have funeral cost anyhow. And we need to take that off this settlement of what we're willing to pay.
what's that?
They would originally have funeral costs. I mean, if they would have normally paid 3,000
Yeah.
anyhow. Or we can say we pay 3,500. Cause that's what it says without the vault.
But these numbers don't include any of that funeral cost items, do they?
no,
I didn't think so.
I don't think they do.
This
But it
is,
comes with a
aren't
grave.
these just numbers to correct the error?
I don't believe so. I think the numbers we had last time were different. That's why I think we should postpone it until we get exact figures. Of what they want and what we. Cause right now we have so many figures here. I don't think we could, it's prudent to try to just pick one out of the air. They were here last month and they're not here this month, so we need to talk with them.
Yeah, I guess, yeah, I just, it's not their fault this happened. I guess I have a little bit of trouble having them pay for any of the error to be corrected, because it wasn't there.
It wouldn't be the error. They would have a normal funeral expense. We wouldn't, they would, if someone passes, you have a normal funeral expense. But we should pay anything above and beyond that to make this right.
Right, but somebody was suggesting we pay for half of it. I'm saying, I feel like we should pay for all of it to make it right. Not their funeral expenses, but
Right, anything to correct the issue,
to.
but we don't know what that exact number is, so that's why it's hard to make a motion.
How do we get that number? Is it Phil Brandt that needs to give us that number then?
Michael?
So the disinterment means exhuming or digging up. So I don't, like the funeral cost, I don't think's in that, but it is confusing with the different figures.
I thought this cost on here was from Phil Brandt Chapel, was the cost for the funeral, the little over $5,000. Or without the vault, it was what, $3,400. I thought that was for their burial, their, what it cost.
Should I talk to Michael about this? I mean, that's not how I read it. It says disinterment fees, which means they are exhuming.
Yeah.
That's not the
Right,
burial,
right.
it's not the funeral. It's like, this is what needs to happen to
Okay,
put the grave
okay.
in the right place, I think.
Yeah, that's true. It
And
is-
maybe you could talk to him about that and then maybe listen to last month's meeting and find out what they were saying. Because there's too many figures being thrown around here.
Okay.
And do we
Make a
know if a new
decision.
vault's needed? Cause this says total cost if new vault is needed.
Mhm.
I will make a motion to postpone, while Jason collects the facts.
What facts are we looking for?
What we need. There's 4 different figures here, Ken. I don't think we should make a decision until we get what the actual cost is to do this.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I think what Murray's trying to say here and what Jason alluded to, this is disinterment fees. So this is just to move the one person.
Mhm.
It has nothing, I don't think it has nothing to do on what their cost for the funeral would be.
Right.
And we need to know that.
Yeah, we don't know what factors determine if a new vault is needed. We have if and if not. I don't know if that
Correct.
happens when they dig it up and they need to decide on the site, or if somebody already knows whether it's needed. So I'll reach out to Michael and Phil Brain if I need to sort out what's
So
what.
Mary, you made a motion to,
Postpone until
Postpone this.
Jason finds the facts out and we can have an exact number.
Mary, you made the motion?
Yep.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Any further discussion? I kind of think basically we have the information here because Douglas, if you took the new foundation, moving the headstone to foundation, disposal of old foundation, the cost of the 660, 150, the 75, the 100, and then you place that with either the 5,096 or the 3,456 if you don't need a vault. And that would be your final cost. The 1,900 for digging it, and that's in both of those.
That's already in there.
They're already in there, so I don't have to add that. So I think we have it. We just gotta decide if we do it with a vault or without. And I guess if they have a problem with that, then if we're planning on paying the total cost,
So you're talking, add another $836 to either one of these figures.
yeah, to either one of those. I think the only reason they're saying with a vault is in case they break a vault when they're moving it. But I think,
I'm comfortable with that too, because I read it the same way, but I guess.
well,
if
we
the
have a
whole board
motion there, I guess the question is if we could settle it, I mean, we probably ought to stop postponing things if we could settle it, and I think we could settle it.
Well,
By-
they said
by
they had
adding
a
that.
headstone and there's a headstone charge on there.
But and that's on there, right?
Right.
You
We're not-
got
we shouldn't-
everything you need right there, and we just add it to either without a vault, and I think we ought to go without a vault, and then if they break the vault, they can come back and tell us they need a vault, I guess.
So if you went with the cost with the vault, you're looking at $5,900.
Mhm.
I'll make a motion to mend the motion to the $5,900.
Are you trumping me, Ken?
Pardon?
You trumping me?
Right.
But we need to vote
Yeah,
on the
there's a
first one.
motion on the table to,
Huh?
motion on the.
You gotta do
table to
my
postpone
motion
it, so you
first.
need to have a vote up or down on that. motion.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Or I can amend my motion.
You wanna amend your motion?
Sure. If
Well,
it'll
thank
make you happy, you bet.
It will
What would
make me
you-
happy.
What would you like me to amend it to?
Gary said it was 5,900.
But
I'll
yeah,
make a motion not to exceed 5,900.
the lower one is about 4,300.
I'll second that motion.
Okay, we gotta vote on the amended. I thought Gary,
Jason.
Gary didn't do the amendment. You got the amendment in there?
Yeah.
And that was by Jason. Roll call vote. Mary,
Yes.
Jason,
Skipped one.
Yeah, that way.
I thought you made this second.
Oh, well, you start with the one who made the motion and then go right.
Oh, I go right?
Yep.
Gary,
Right. Yes.
Jason,
Yes.
Kara,
Yes.
there we go.
We'll, communicate with them and let them know that's what we're gonna do. Is that you? Yeah.
I can. I haven't been in contact with them at all, so I don't know if it should come from me just because I was absent the last meeting and stuff.
New business, consider the emergency service, open millage rate currently set at 2 mills. And the question is are we going to stay with 2 mills? I provided the ordinance to establish the board authority over it, which says that we can increase it. I gave you a budget evaluation, and in that budget evaluation, I also included your neighboring fire departments at 2.3390 for Arlington, 2.8600 for Bangor, Bloomingdale was 0, Decatur was 3.5. That was for fire and MFR. Geneva is paying for fire and ambulance from South Haven at 3.1. Lawrence is paying 3.2. South Haven Township is 3.31. And Lee Township is
Pelican County.
4.
Culvert's 1.7 for fire and ambulance. It all depends on how much industry in your tax rate.
I'm gonna say that they also have a nuclear power plant and gas power.
Exactly.
You
We
can't
don't
compare
have
apples to oranges there.
We don't.
That's illogical.
You're right.
Yeah, I did not use Covert because it's not apples to apples. No discussion? Do you want to stay at 2 mills? And that's all we have to say.
I do not feel comfortable raising anyone's taxes, until we put it on the ballot.
Okay,
I think just because we can doesn't mean we should.
is that a motion?
Do I need a motion? You asked
Well,
for
I
discussion.
think we ought to set the millage rate so that we can,
Okay,
I can finish out the
I
documents.
will move, we stay at the 2 mills. And if there's gonna be a change at all, it should be put on the ballot in the next election coming up, which is in May. Of next year,
Hold
not
on.
this year.
This may be a legal question because the emergency services is a SAD and isn't it required to have an annual meeting to discuss what that rate is set at?
Yeah.
I mean, it seems inappropriate that we're discussing the rate right now
Well, I
for
was
some
going to
reason.
say, you're going to have a public hearing, I expect, right? Do you do that every year?
We did that with our budget.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, we did
Sure.
with the
It's part
budget.
of it.
Yeah.
So the.
Okay. K2 would be the notice for a public hearing for the fire millage if we decided to go above 2
Well,
mills.
but even if you're at 2, so PA 233 says The township board shall annually determine the amount to be assessed in the district for police and fire protection, shall direct the supervisor to distribute the special assessment levy, and shall hold a hearing on the estimated costs and expenses of police and fire protection and on the distribution of the levy.
Wasn't that our
So,
budget meeting hearing?
We did.
but
No.
this is separate.
That's
This
a
is under,
separate
this
thing.
is the special, on the special assessment specifically. At that hearing, did you say it's going to be 2.0 mils and give everybody notice that this is what your merchant, okay, not in a shaking of the head?
Well, I think when we did the budget hearing, we put down all the stuff that we needed in there.
Yeah, generally, if you're doing a PA 230, or excuse me, PA 33, 233 is the renewable energy, 33 says. You're having an annual hearing on what that millage amount is going, what that assessment amount is going to be. So that would be my recommendation.
Well, we could always have another public hearing because I have it for the next one and we'll just send it at 2.
Yeah, if that would be my recommendation. Also, was it correct that was created in 1999?
Yes.
And the district hasn't changed, I expected for.
Started off at 3, went to 2.75.
Boundaries of the district.
It's
No.
the whole
Just whole
town.
It's a township.
Yeah,
So would they have to send letters out of notification?
I think when you. the
If we're
notice
gonna
for
raise
that Is.
that's only if it's gonna be raised. I think you could just have to put it on the website and publish it on the
If
door.
there's a public hearing and it's the whole township.
Yeah, because generally, they want you to follow Act 188. All proceedings relating to the making, levying, and collection of special assessments shall conform as near as practical to the proceedings provided for in Act 188 of 1954, which does provide the mail notice.
Even if you don't change it, aren't you required to have an annual hearing to say what it's going to be for the upcoming year?
You haven't set a millage rate for this next year. It's annually determined.
Right.
It could be 0.
Well, we already said it,
We already said it with the budget.
with the budget.
at
But there was a
2.0.
public hearing for the budget, but you're saying it can't be the same public hearing?
The statute contemplate, if all you had to do is have a budget hearing, then the legislature could have said, just put it in your budget. Because you already have to have a budget hearing. So why would the legislature have a separate hearing requirement?
So have we been doing it wrong for 25 years?
Yeah.
Potentially.
Perhaps, but not in a way that I think is going to have any detriment, but I think if you're asking me how you should proceed, that's going to be my recommendation.
Does the statute stipulate, is that like an end of the year meeting or is it just anytime? I mean, it's annual, obviously, but
You have to do it before your L 29.
Yeah, you gotta do it
is
for
approved.
your.
Which is due March
Soon.
or the 30th, May 30th, I need it.
Then I got the notice all ready to go at 2 would be easy to put it in there, so.
Yeah,
And it doesn't levy obviously until December.
So really,
I think there's an old resolution or an ordinance or something that says that might have gone out when they formed it, that, or when they changed it to 2.0.
they said it would be the
That it's
last
gonna
notice that they
stay
received.
That way, unless they're notified of it.
Right.
I'm just telling you what the law says.
Yeah, it could have been handled wrong before.
So in my previous life, I was Berry County Treasurer for 21 years.
Excellent.
You have to have a public hearing every year on the assessment to determine the needs of the village.
So we need to set up a public hearing.
Yes.
And letters to everyone.
Before the 30th of May.
I need.
Well, it's, technically, it's not, technically, it doesn't affect until the winter tax base
Right,
comes.
but it has to be sent.
But it should, well, yeah,
Well, the good thing is it's a shorter notice period than Act 88. That's 5 days before the hearing.
we could set the hearing before the next meeting.
yeah,
And at the next meeting, we could
right.
approve it.
So
So
it doesn't-
basically, setting the rate is gonna have to be after the hearing, so we can't set the rate today. But the rate's gonna be 2 that I put in the public hearing. So-
Sure.
So that being said, I will get that to
May
Carl.
30th?
No,
The treasurer wants it by May 30th.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You want it?
The county wants it by May 30th for the summer taxes. We gotta get summer tax bills out.
But the L 4029 doesn't impact the summer taxes, it impacts
Impacts
the
the
winter
winter
tax.
They don't have to have that to September 30th according to the state law. But they like it sooner so they can, but that's not
I
gonna
was
go
gonna
on
say, I know
summer
some
taxes.
clients don't have those done in May, for sure.
No, I looked at the dates and they weren't signed in the past that early.
Okay,
I looked at the law, it said, September 30th.
somebody better get a hold of that
In
county
fact,
treasurer.
I think I threw that in here.
Must be pregnancy brain.
She's probably thinking of the summer taxes, she wants everything by May 30th for summer.
Right, if they're gonna be levied in the summer, you need it, but it's not.
Well, yeah,
Yeah, it just says you'll be working on setting up summer and village tax rolls the week of June 1st. Please send your 4029s and any special assessments you plan to add by May 30th. I will pass along the county's 4029 once I receive it.
I don't know what to. I don't have a response to that, I guess. I mean, you could say that, but you can't really assess it without being a public hearing, so you need to have a public hearing.
we'll have a,
With, being with 5 days notice, we could still do, I mean, I do not want to do this, but
Yeah. I'm not sure.
We could do it next week.
I mean, we could.
Well, I'm
we could
sure
do
if
it,
it's
right?
late, it's obviously if it's not the law.
It's not
then
going
she's
on to
just-
summer taxes.
Okay.
Well, you have to do this under last year's, 4020.
Okay.
Okay. K1, we're not doing anything with it. That's probably, yeah, we're not gonna do anything with that at all.
Well, when are you gonna have your
Yeah.
public hearing?
Yeah, I mean, are
What's
we,
that?
we have to determine our public hearing and stuff.
and that was gonna be prior to our next, at the same, yeah.
Our next meeting date is what? We're gonna have it at 6:30 that day,
June
June
17th.
17th.
June 17th
I won't be here.
at 6:30.
And letters have to be sent to who's doing that?
5 days.
You have to send a letter out to every property owner?
That's what they just
So
said.
this says you have to comply with Act 188 to the extent practicable, and the Act 188 requires no notice. So Act 33 doesn't specifically say it, but it references Act 188, but it does.
I mean, we could do it in-house or hire somebody to do it.
In 5 days.
Well, we're gonna do it
And it's June 17th.
June 17th.
Okay.
Since this doesn't actually have to happen until the winter bill, and you'll be mailing out bills
Oh,
July.
Yeah, we could
1st,
put it with our,
You put it with
You
text.
get it to everybody in the same envelope,
that's a good point
if you
here.
wanna do that.
We don't have to approve this till after that anyway, so we can put it in the July,
Somerville.
summer bill.
Summer
Yeah.
bill.
Good
Save
job,
me
Karen.
Very good, Karen.
$100 or whatever.
We're moving it to July. At 6:30. The 17th, right?
15th.
Those definitely go out on July 1.
Yeah, they do. Right, Mary?
Sounds
July.
good to me.
Yeah, I need a motion on that.
Make a motion to hold a public hearing July 15th at 6:30. Letters will be sent with summer tax bill on July 1st.
Get a second?
That's a lovely motion. I'll second that.
You second it?
Yes.
Jason seconded it? Comments? Oh. Yeah, this is gonna cost us money. Roll call. Carl.
Yeah.
Ken, Mary,
Yes.
Gary,
Yes,
Jason,
Yes.
Jason. Do we need to do anything with Gary's motion above? I didn't get a second.
that's right. Dead.
Then,
Which motion?
His motion to stay at 2 mills.
Sit, yeah,
If there's gonna be a
so
change.
the
it
2
should put
mills,
it on the
we'll go to the
ballot.
public at the next election.
yeah, there was no second, so it's,
And there was no second. Dead?
They'll do the lack of second.
Yeah, there's no second step.
We can postpone K3.
Yeah, you don't have to do anything with it.
I think I filled out. Didn't I give you a copy of the L?
Yeah.
Can't find it. Which one?
No,
I had one filled out.
that one.
Yeah, but I filled out this
One
form.
more.
You did.
Wait,
I filled out this form with numbers, except for the fire. I didn't know what it was. Is it on there? It's not on there. Well, those rates would have been 073. What, we're gonna do this later anyways.
Yep.
I don't think we have to do anything with this at this point.
I don't think you have to do anything with K4, K5, or K6.
Yeah, they all get moved out after
Okay,
July.
Or K7.
Okay, 7, Mary does have to do that, summer tax roll information. That's what the county really does need. By me.
I wrote the resolution for that truth and taxation too. So that gets moved out.
Yeah.
Summer tax roll information, we just talked about that. Is there any action we need there?
No,
Mary? What do you think? Know what you need to send her?
Sure. It's my first rodeo, but I'll figure it out.
I can help you. Consideration to update transfer station hours for summertime. Kitty Harrison would volunteer.
I think they wanted, hours during the week.
Yeah, and I think we asked that the transfer station provide us with asking them what day of the week when they came in at the last,
And they all said that, everybody I asked, they said that just Saturday was fine, the first Sunday of every month was fine.
they didn't care what day it was?
Preferably Saturdays, because everybody works Friday, but they know that the first Sunday of every month, they said just keep it the way it is. Nobody's mentioned anything of during the week.
They didn't want anything in the week?
Maybe the people that came to the last one, but the last meeting, they said they did want something during the week.
Yeah.
Can you continue to take the survey out there to see if maybe when we get into the summer, you got out of staters that come down there?
That's what I'm thinking, he was doing more of the Illinois people that come in.
Yeah.
It's not the regulars.
Well, I think some of the regulars had decided they would rather not go to the transfer station on the weekend if it was open one
they
evening,
do it, yeah.
is what I heard.
Several people on Facebook said they would like. to.
Well, get the pulse out there and I guess get back to us. We could add it back on if we got people talking to you or if they come into the township hall and want a weekday.
I'll keep asking.
Everyone agreeable to that sort
Well,
of?
they already said last time during the meeting that they wanted them, and we have somebody that wants to do it. And we have people that don't wanna go to the transfer station on the weekends,
Or can't.
or can't. So, you know, I'm thinking Tuesday evening from 5 to 7 even for the summer, starting in June, would be nice. We did a poll on Facebook and people wanted summer hours.
Is that what they said?
Mhm. Don't you watch my Facebook post?
I'm agreeable with that.
Face to snap.
I don't think they used it very much last year though.
Well,
We
let's
did.
try it.
But part of it is, do they even know it exists?
It was never advertised before. That was the problem.
And we have
They just changed the hours, bam, like that, and nobody knew about it.
Well, they had one guy that wanted it to be that way. He said he would be there on Tuesday. He never showed.
Bill, if you were gonna go to the transfer station on a weekday, would you think between 5 and 7 in the summertime would work, or would you want it earlier?
That's a good chance.
Okay,
Is what?
I'll make a motion that we have transfer station hours, June through September from 5 to 7 on Tuesday evenings. And I guess if Chuck's not gonna do it, Kitty volunteered to do it, so then we'll work on the personnel issue later. I'm just gonna do it.
I never said I wouldn't do it.
That's what I said. We'll work on who's gonna do it later.
You get the motion?
I'm typing it.
Can I get a second? Motion to approve summertime transfer station hours in the summer stating June 1st to add Tuesdays, 5 PM to 7 PM.
I'll second.
Or second, is there any comments?
What's the date? June what?
Starting in the 1st of June, the first Tuesday in
June
June
1st.
Okay, until when?
through September.
Through September?
Through September. I had that. Do you want to add advertising in that? You want to put it in the reminder before
Do
June
it on
1st?
Facebook and we'll do it.
Facebook and that?
Yeah, we can do it free.
I didn't even put it on the website.
Put it on the website.
Okay.
Is there a sign at the transfer station that had?
We got a motion and a second. It's gonna be a money thing, so Mary,
Yes.
Gary,
Yes.
Jason,
Yes.
Cara,
Yes.
Ken, all in favor.
Put it on the summer tax bill.
Okay, we're getting down to the end of this. Discussion for procedure change regarding zoning violations.
I spoke with Tasha and these campers and stuff like that is actually a zoning violation. And she said that should be handled by the zoning administrator. And she has a procedure that she uses. Because of the outage and stuff, I wasn't able to get that information from her, but she has a procedure that she uses by sending out a letter, actually it's 2 letters during a certain time frame, and then a citation's written if they don't comply, and our deputy would take care of that. And then it would follow either they comply with it or they go to court. So it should be handled by the zoning administrator. She says that's part of her job. She doesn't know why it wasn't done in the first place.
And you're referencing the long-term habitation in a camper,
Correct.
I believe our,
Anything you do camping RVs on vacant lots?
You can still get a permit for the 30. or
I think it's up to 30 days.
Up to 90 days, actually.
Camping is 5 days. 90 days for an RV.
That's right. That's right. When I had them out at my place with the septic and this, I got permits every year.
Well, I guess that discussion's over with. Anything else on it?
Are we gonna do anything with it? What were you?
Tasha's gonna handle it.
Yeah,
Part of her job.
I'll get the procedure from
I see.
from Tasha and then we'll go from there.
Okay.
Public comment? Okay,
For the lawyer, I'm sorry, is it Laura?
Laura, yeah.
I don't mean to put you on the spot, maybe you won't know till next meeting, but I keep hearing about this fire truck and that we need it, but then some people don't wanna pay for it. And think it's better if we refurbish it. And what I would like to know legally, what does our insurance policy say about that? You know, how we handle our fire equipment and what liability do we have as a township if our first pump route doesn't work?
So I don't know what your insurance policy says. I frankly don't have a copy of it. I'm not sure that there's any difference in liability because technically the township's immune from a lot of those kinds of claims anyway under governmental immunity. So I'm not sure that somebody could really state a claim that says you were negligent and it caused, a harm, I'm not sure that would be a viable claim under Michigan law. That is kind of a liability answer question. I don't mean for that to be a statement on the policy of how the township should or shouldn't spend taxpayer money. That's not my role. So I'm not sure that the legal answer to the question of what the township should do, buy a new one or refurbish. That's frankly a policy question.
So related to that, if the
Whoa,
pumper.
Wait, what?
I'm just like, do I wanna move to a town where, if the town isn't, I'm just really confused. We've got a multi-million-dollar battery plant, thinking of coming to a town where they know the fire equipment isn't up to date, or there's a big question about it. It's gonna be at least, we have to make some decisions now, or it seems, either refurbish or purchase. And we need a context in which to make those decisions reasonably, and surely there's a liability in there for us. You're telling me as I sit here, if I have a fire tonight and I call these guys and they show up at my house and it burns down because the pumper didn't work, I have no claims against the township.
I
That's
think-
your understanding.
I think the Governmental Tort Liability Act would preclude that claim.
So it's.
Even if it was out of certification?
If you look at the NFPA regulations, and also the ISO documentation, those, they're not statutes, they're recommendations. And I understand why, and I have no problem with that. But there is some, for lack of a better term, fudging that you can do with apparatus. And I don't mean that negatively. What I mean is there's other ways you can take care of it so that they work. And briefly, ISO doesn't care how old your truck is or whatever the apparatus is, as long as it passed the test for what it was made for, they're good with it.
Legally, the township doesn't have to come at all. They have no
That's right.
legal
That's right.
obligation to provide fire emergency services.
There's three things.
Now, I would live in a township that didn't, to be clear.
Right.
But when you ask me, when you say a lawyer, legal question, I can only give you a legal answer. These are the folks elected to decide how to spend taxpayer money. That's their job. I can only say what the legal risks are for different things. So if the question is there liability? No, I don't think there is. I don't think they need it. Legally, they don't need to have a fire department at all.
The township has three things that they have to provide. Elections, assessments, and
Tax collection.
tax collection. Just like the sheriff's office. The sheriff's office has to have a jail. They don't have to have squad cars, they don't have a dive team, they don't have, that's all just fluff. The only thing they're required to do is house prisoners, have a jail.
Well, there's some pretty nice properties that are going up around here, and I just think it's in the township's interest to make it be known to people that care what the issues are with the fire equipment, so the township can make a decision on full information. I'm just kind of stunned, frankly. It never even occurred to me. As a homeowner, it never even occurred to me. I've lived in lots of different towns. It never even occurred to me that they didn't have a duty to show up at my house. And if I'm living in a township where that duty isn't gonna be, and I'm not saying it has been taken seriously. I'm not trying to pass this person in any way, but it does appear to me, and I've been sitting through these meetings at different times for years, and it just keeps coming up. So why did you ask the public what they want? At least let the public make a decision about whether they want the fire truck to show up. If they decide no, well then, okay. But I wonder how many homeowners really think that it's okay that, fire truck not show up. And I think it needs to be a decision that they make it an informed context, and this is not informed. And I'm hearing it the first time. I'm glad I asked the question.
Well, just, you said something about refurbishing, that is not. Your primary engine cannot be a refurbished engine. You can refurbish it and keep it for as long as you want, like Gary said. But according to NFPA, the first out engine has to be within 15 years, it can't be older than 15 years.
So what do you say about that, Laura? What are you saying?
That's the NFPA standards.
If you are going to have a fire department, you need to comply with requirements. I'm not sure that your question is a legal one. I think you're, advocating for the board to make a decision, and that's what.
No,
public
I'm not,
comments for.
I'm advocating for information, so that the decision can be.
It's not a legal issue.
It is just, if we do have a fire department and the code says we have to have this, that is.
Right,
But you're
but
still
they don't have to,
claim.
we don't have to have a fire department.
So that would be another decision the public could make.
Right.
Do we want a fire department?
Right.
Am I missing something here?
No?
Well,
Well,
I think what we're talking about, what I'm talking about is taxes raised.
Uh-huh.
When I collect taxes, I see people bringing in $82.56, making payments off their social security. And I think the rest of us feel like we don't want to raise taxes. You just said that you get a ton of grants. We don't have a single grant. I sent the grant, what's going on? There are no grants for fire trucks.
Yeah, there are 2 grant opportunities that came out today from FEMA, which I communicated with JC and Ken about. They're small though, and they're for training, and they are for extra fire help to cover staffing shortages. And
Not equipment.
I'm happy to help you get those.
So there's not a single grant out there for equipment.
No,
Sorry,
if you go to the FEMA website, for AFS or AG, I think it is,
Mhm.
they have the money for the engines and they say it's under, construction, but I'm hopeful. I have no inside knowledge. I'm hopeful, just the mere fact that these 2 grants opportunities came out today, that means they're gonna continue on with the fire truck purchase. But
So the
then
private
what
grant
happened
that I
is
sent you that have
grant-
nothing to do with
that
fire
grant,
trucks.
If the fire engine grant becomes possible for us, we can't even apply for it until late this fall. It is a long process. So I think, I don't want you to make any decisions thinking we're gonna get a grant or that Vespers is gonna show up. I think you need to make a decision if none of that happens.
How can we do this without raising taxes on our citizens?
Yeah, well, the other thing is, I think it was mentioned maybe by you, and I'm not, and correct me if I'm wrong, but when you get grants for a large apparatus or whatever, it's generally regional. So if somebody has a big pumper over here or a big engine over here, and we don't, and we're not gonna, and we apply for the grant, they're gonna say, no, you've already got this in this areas and that sort of thing.
We don't know, that we work regionally with other fire departments and that we're called off of first is gonna play in our favor, and I read something this week about, was it Waverly's asking us to be their fire department? Did I hear
I
something?
thought it was Arlington.
Is it Arlington?
What?
It's one of our.
Where did you read it at?
Townships that abuts us wants,
I might
something I
be-
read this week was. Did anybody, I think,
Where did you find that at? Where'd you hear that at?
it was the communications that happened this week.
Oh,
Talking about
Okay.
a nearby township not wanting to have a fire department. All I'm saying, I don't have a strong opinion on how we pay for it. I just think the public needs to decide.
That's why I had mentioned earlier, if we're gonna do that, then put it on the ballot. Change it from a cent to a millage and have the people vote on it, and if they pass it, you've got it. If they don't, we don't. We'll work out some other way. It's what the
We
public,
can't turn away every industrial entity to increase our tax base, because that's how we share the burden of the taxes.
Laura, how often would we have to hold
It's just it
Oh,
tears up.
election on,
It doesn't help us now.
Depends on how long the extra voted millage is for, so I'm not sure.
but it would end at some time.
It wouldn't be,
Can't-
yeah, but it wouldn't be annually, but yes, it would.
It wouldn't be endless, so we could have a nice fire department and all of a sudden, everyone votes no for a fire department, we have no funding for what we have.
Yes,
Right.
that would
Happened
happen.
here,
Yeah.
that's right.
Yeah.
One minute they had 2 helicopters and the next moment they were closed down.
Grant, we buy different things for grants, but when the grant money's gone, you have maintenance and upkeep and everything else. And if you don't have the funding for it,
But
you
if,
don't.
if the public's deciding
And the
by
pub-
vote,
right.
then
Well, the public actually did vote back in 1999. Nobody got recalled,
I know it was not.
and there was a lot of
successful,
people
but
that
it was
voted
an
at that
attempt.
one.
Right, you were the one who told me.
Yeah,
It
We
was
still
also
public
dropped
comment?
quite a bit too.
I've told you, nobody wants to go through that.
Are we still on public comment?
Yeah, we are on public comment.
Can I make use of comment? So we're talking about raising taxes and so forth, but in the next breath, we're talking about people that can't make enough money to even own their own home. And, but they've got this piece of property and they wanna live in their trailer and we're telling them they can't. It seems to be contradictory. You know, which way are we gonna go? Are we about helping people or are we about helping ourselves to what we want? Just a thought. It feels like we're more about preserving what we want rather than what we want to do for the citizens, our entire community. Because most of the people I respond to, most of them, I bet you are on the lower end of what you were talking about for, you know, those are the people that can't afford it, but those are the people that need it. And those are the people that do have a responsibility to take care of those in their area. And if they don't want to, fine. But let it be known that, you know, don't cower behind one rule that says, well, you can't have that piece of trash here. I'm gonna get rid of you because I don't like you, even though you only have $25 to your name. Regardless of the circumstance. So, don't play both sides of the fence. Stay on one side of the fence and be there. That's my thought. By the way, J.C. Robertson, 55130. Well, I think it's important that people know that the public comments are coming from the citizens, right? Yes, I'm the fire chief. Yes, I'm a pastor in the area. Yes, I'm a teacher in the area, but I live in this area. I have every bit of the right to say, this is malarkey, as everybody else does.
Yeah.
So.
Could you clarify which part is malarkey?
Are we still gonna run 8 hours on Saturday or are we gonna shorten Saturdays?
That's a good question.
I think we just add it for the summer, but that's how I took it.
That's fine.
I mean, if you get to where there's nobody coming in, let us know.
let you know.
Yeah.
You done then?
Worse, if you don't like work.
Karen, you wanna talk about your correspondence?
No, I just sent that in so that you all.
Well, so
have
that
it.
was good information.
Yeah, thank you.
You're welcome.
Board comments, Gary?
No, comments that I just had mentioned about the, zoning administrator, that's all. Oh, there is one other thing. I've got a couple of calls in to, Adam Dobbs from Bestway. Because I don't think you've gotten anything back from him yet.
I
And-
called him today and had a conversation with him and he's said he's been very, very busy this spring. And that he has had my request since the fall. And he said that he now understands that he needs it right away and that he'd have something to us in a shorter period of time.
Okay. 'Cause
But he
I
said
left
he'll
a
start looking at it today.
I left this message,
Yeah.
I called him 3 different times and I know he's been busy, so
If he calls me back, I'll let you know. If he calls you back, let me
I
know.
will.
Then we'll both know.
Okay, cool.
Jason?
I'll just say, I think, Kate, your illumination on our emergency services conundrum underscores the importance of getting people to these meetings. And so I'd encourage everybody to invite people to these meetings and do whatever you can to get the word out, because it's not a simple task. I mean, I think everybody fundamentally would agree and say, we want our people to be safe. We want there to be a fire truck that shows up. However, we're running into all these variables that make that decision extremely complicated. From a budgetary standpoint alone, we can't support a fire truck. We're also considering, you know, the investment of Vesper coming in, which is also something that the general public has expressed concern over. So, and the fire department's set up as a SAD right now, which makes it more complicated. So I think we have a lot of issues to figure out, but I agree 100% with, I think Mary said it, Gary said it. You know, we did a survey, trying to get the pulse of the people, and we need more participants in that survey, but the survey overwhelmingly showed that people do not want tax increases. And we even tried to kind of poke at, what about for emergency services? And they still said, yeah, I don't think I could support it even for emergency services. but I would be comfortable with a bigger sample for that survey to know that it's a 95% confidence level, but there's still people out there saying, we don't want you to raise taxes, so we're up here as a board, you know, looking at all these complicated decisions we need to make, but under all that is we have to do what the citizens want, and they're saying no more taxes. So we need more voices, I guess, is all I'll say.
Agreed.
Well, you have the other thing where we went out for election to increase our operating expenditure back to 1, and it got voted down.
Mhm.
And we tried it twice, so.
People can't afford it. Every
Yeah,
year,
I
taxes are
understand.
going up 5%, 3%. I mean, my taxes have doubled since I've lived in Columbia Township. We have to find a way to fund this without raising our citizens' taxes. I think, Kate, didn't you say we have the poorest population in Van Buren County?
Poverty.
Why do we think that we can ask them for more money?
Yeah,
The applied for grants are poverty, are poverty.
we're the top poverty.
But there's also a notion that, that at least I'm picking up on as I'm looking at some of these regulations, that we're poor, but we're also a community that has some responsibility, and I, in the context of liability and insurance, we're all, if you have an insurance policy on your house, those are going up skyrocketing. I wonder if I can even get a homeowner's insurance policy if my township doesn't have a.
$8. It's $8.
What's $8?
That's what your increase will be on the different rates, is
Oh,
$8.
yeah, I'm just saying, I just think we need to have a straightforward, public information, get it, all the information out there so people can make grown-up decisions. You can't make a decision when you get information here and over here and it's not all pulled together. But but I do bring up the insurance issue because if you do have a home and you do have home insurance, everybody is going through skyrocketing rates.
Everything.
Why? Because of fires that are taking, and
Natural disasters, yeah.
yeah, but a lot of, wildfires are a real issue out here. And I just think people need to make a decision. That if they want to live here and they want to put money into this township and they want to build a home, you know, do they want emergency services? And I never got a survey. So if you did send out a survey, and I'm sure you did, I didn't get it. So I don't know how you sent it out. I live here and there's only like 25. I didn't get it. So I agree with you. It probably needs to be more robust. And I'm just in favor of building the information up so a good decision can be made, that no matter what happens, everybody at least knows we have the information that we needed to make a decision.
Is that your public comment?
No, I'm not done yet.
You're not done yet? Okay, second thing.
Oh, I am watching people struggle and I understand your point. I believe that we can make money or find money without raising people's taxes every single year. And I don't know when the last time we had a wildfire here was. When I moved out here in 98, we had some grass fires, but people have been pretty good about that. I do believe we need emergency services. I'm not saying we don't, but think we need to be as responsible as we can with the taxpayers' money. It's a lot of money and we're asking a lot for people to pay. Every year, everything's gone up. Your house insurance is doubled, everything's gone up. You know, I honestly, we have passed what I would consider more silly millages. And that's why I think this needs to be on the ballot, because I do believe that people would probably support it, but I don't feel comfortable as a board member raising people's taxes without a vote.
Has anybody, you guys keep talking about all this, but I haven't heard like a dollar amount that would affect an average dollar amount that would affect each person. I mean, what do you guys, I mean.
It's usually hundreds of dollars, depends on what your house is worth, depends on your taxable value.
Well, I understand that, but I mean, how much per thousand or 100,000 or whatever, however it goes, how much would that raise?
An additional 120,000 a year.
Depends on what your house is valued at.
And it's depending on your house value.
Not many
Somebody
of us
with
have
a
$120,000 house.
a taxable value of $25,000 will pay a lot less than someone with
I
a.
understand that.
Yeah.
But that's, you can tell somebody how much, it'll be $5 extra on your bill for every $100,000 your house is worth. Or whatever, you can give that number out and you have it.
I have it. I have it on a spreadsheet.
And we do,
What's in Millworth? I think it's what he's asking. What's in Millworth?
what's a mill worth, Karen?
A mill's worth, your two mills bring you in about 240,000. Half of that would be 240.
All right, so what he's asking now is.
$1 for every thousand in taxable.
He's asking
What is
for,
it?
$2 for every
Yeah.
$1,000.
Thank you.
So
$2.
$1, thank you.
What is it?
$1.
One mil would be $1 for every $1,000 of taxable value.
Okay,
So 2 mils would be $2 for every $1,000.
so you get $100,000, $200.
Which
I know
doesn't
you're only
seem,
talking about the increase, so if you go up one, it's gonna be half of the
Okay.
Okay,
two.
we're going.
it's me, it's my turn.
Yeah,
And that only depends on what your house is worth.
Right.
So $200 to some of us is not a big deal, and I'll be the first to admit that. But again, when I'm watching people struggle in our township to pay what they have, which is already going up 3.5%, 5% every year, they can't afford it. We have got to do a better job of finding money, cutting stuff that we have done, JC. You know, our biggest expense is labor. Would you not say?
Always gonna be labor. It will always be labor.
But didn't they just add somebody to the mix too, though? Didn't you guys say that earlier? They added somebody?
We hired
A couple of years ago.
was it 2 years ago, a full-time employee who responds during the day to emergency services because they didn't have anyone to respond during the day.
Even this grant that might, that say we write the grant and we get it, and you get some money for 3 years to bring on some more help. The grant, I was looking at it today, says very specifically, don't think you're gonna get that next time. Grow up and plan on paying for it when the grant is over. So we'll give you the money, we'll give you 3 years.
You know, another issue is we're paying the county $100,000 for ambulance service and they can't get out here in time. So that's
I'm
why
just
we
saying,
have to cover.
World, they're gonna take a look at whether the township is doing its part. So for example, if we get the money the first year, 75% of the grant would be 75% of the first year salaries would be paid by the federal government, 25% by the township. Next year,
Like 50/50.
50/50.
Yeah, it's
Last
gonna go
year,
down.
we're paying 65% of that, and the grant is paying for the last bit of it, with the understanding that we're gonna take it on. We're gonna be able to sustain it. We're not expecting a grant to always be paying for our labor costs, so it helps us build this up, but we have to show we can sustain it. So
You're absolutely right, Mary.
So we have to figure out something and we just have to.
Well, and it goes back to this, so we need more of us working than just five. Five people are working their butts off and running their heads into the walls, trying to figure things out. Need more people than five.
So, yes, I'm finished now.
Done now?
I'm done.
Tara, I liked your survey. I saw that light was our number one. Thanks for doing that.
Yeah.
Any comments?
I'm gonna look into seeing if I can share the survey without getting like repeats, not necessarily
All the
tracking
recommendations I take.
people. Not tracking people, but making sure they
Live in the
live
township.
here or pay taxes here. So I'll figure that out.
Did it go on our website?
It was whoever was
Yeah.
signed up.
Yeah,
For
we
our
just-
automatic.
But if you like, it might have went to your junk, or if you unsubscribed from MailChimp before, you might not have received it.
You know, the other issue about money is we have the fire department, but we also have a huge amount of people that want recycling and other things.
Right.
Now, one of the options, I don't know if Laura got any information on this or not, but we have all these Airbnbs that are taking over the lakes. There's possibly a way that we can restrict that a little bit. Let's bring in some income there. It's like Hotel California out there everywhere on the weekends. That's something we need to start looking into. Because that would be a way to bring in revenue to cover some of those expenses. So I think we need to figure out how we can bring in more revenue without taxing our citizens. That's all I'm saying, Kate. And we have other things like I hear recyclable all the time.
And like,
Maybe Station 1 can be a recyclable. Maybe we can take some of that money toward the blight, you know? And I agree with you, JC. If somebody only has a camper, I struggle with that too. What if that's, oh, so then what, you can go live in a car down by the river? I don't know. What's the answer? It takes more than these 5 people. You're right. It takes a community.
It takes more than just an idea. It's
Yeah,
not just vision, it's the implementation as well.
Maybe we need to talk to Pullman. They get a lot of stuff done there. So I'm finished, sorry.
You done again?
I'm done again.
Kurt, is there anything that, the county can do for us? When we had to add that ambulance person on days, because life,
Please don't say ambulance, he's not ambulance.
huh?
He's
Medical.
QR. Please don't say ambulance, he's not ambulance, he's quick response.
Quick responder.
Thank you, because it confuses people, because he's not an ambulance.
How many times does the ambulance actually show up if you guys get there and take care of the situation? Do you call them off or do
We
they?
have been calling them off to keep them available to do other things, absolutely.
And how many calls do they actually come to that they actually get called out for?
I'd have to look at those numbers, but we have, because we appreciate our life partners, the life ambulance. We tell them, hey, this is a malarkey call. We've got this one.
But we got millage from the county to pay for that ambulance and we're
Well, that's super.
doing a lot of the work for them.
Would you rather, I mean, this goes back to the statements of, there's the right thing to do, and then there's the economical thing to do. Which one do you wanna do, because you can't do them both?
I wanna know if Kurt can help us, is what I wanna know.
But, I think that, you know, we talked about the.
We did talk about it, but I mean, we're in desperate times. I mean, we took our ARPA fund and we went out and did all the internet. And then when it came time to get ARPA to do our area, we didn't need that much. So we didn't get as much ARPA that everybody else got to put in all this cable. And there should be some help that we can get somewhere before we lose the fire department.
Let's wait, let's not get so
You did.
excited about spending that ARPA money
You
for
did.
internet.
You were correct on that. I went to a training and everybody used it for their fire department except us. So
I think Dave was upset about that too.
You should be.
He was, he's no longer chief anymore.
So from now, I guess the
You know,
moral of the story is to listen to Kurt from now on.
the problem was it was a big emergency to get this money out.
No,
It's
that's, a
always an
problem.
emergency.
We can't do that anymore.
You're right.
Okay, I'm done. We're gonna adjourn the meeting at 9:30.
Jason, do you have any battery left?
Actually, I do 30% still. Must not have been working it very hard.